Coming up on Lawmakers, full coverage of Governor Barnes' State of the State address. And Wandy Lawson reports on the governor's plan to create sales tax holidays, and Georgia teens battle smoking.
Live from Atlanta, this is Lawmakers for Wednesday, February 6th. Here are your hosts, Gerald Bryant and Susan Hoffman.
Good evening, everyone. Also today, the Senate Education Committee recommends a bill that would change current school policy on cell phones and pagers.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Hamilton Northcutt. Susan Hoffman is on assignment. Our top story tonight, Governor Barnes' State of the State address.
And it was a speech delayed by President Bush's Atlanta visit last week. And as is custom, the governor's State of the State message was preceded by a formal invitation to enter the House chamber.
Mr. President, the Honorable Roy Barnes, Governor of this great state of Georgia, his queenly wife, Mrs. Marie Barnes, his committee of escort and distinguished guests await admittance to the chamber.
The governor would talk of his concern for the economy, but would express optimism about a future for the state that he sees as bright and secure. He would speak of cutting unemployment taxes for businesses to create jobs, and he would propose increasing benefits for those out of work and in need of jobs. He would receive a standing ovation for backing a sales tax holiday to boost the economy, and he would be interrupted by protesters in the gallery, but would recover with good humor. Tonight, we have extensive coverage of Governor Barnes' speech, plus reaction to that speech from both parties.
In beginning his fourth State of the State message, Governor Barnes said the task was easier in prior years. He cited the booming economy of the recent past and noted that things have changed.
Our economy has been hit by the same slowdown that is affecting the whole nation. According to the Wall Street Journal, the tragic events of September the 11th will cost about 1.6 million Americans their jobs by the end of this year. In Georgia, we have been hit especially hard in the airline and tourism industries, as well as the high-tech sector, which had begun to slow before September the 11th. Even though we posted a net gain of 124,000 jobs since 1999, the great news of those jobs creation is tempered by the fact that we actually lost jobs last year. So today, I'm going to tell you something that may surprise you. My fellow Georgians, even though we face some difficult challenges in the coming months, I believe the future of Georgia is bright and secure.
And the governor said Georgia is in better shape than most other states thanks to good fiscal planning, including budget cuts and the creation of a rainy day fund.
In an effort to boost the economy, Governor Barnes announced a new initiative, 4 days of sales tax-free shopping.
I am proposing to you today, Shop Georgia, a sales tax holiday that will boost the economy, provide immediate tax relief, help families with back-to-school expenses, and help bridge the digital divide by making it easier for working families to afford a computer. I propose 2 exemption periods of 2 days each. The last Friday and Saturday this March to provide some immediate relief, and the first Friday and Saturday in August when folks are doing their back-to-school shopping.
Now, specifically, the governor wants to exempt clothing up to $100 each, school supplies up to $20 per item, and personal computer equipment up to $1,500.
Consumers and merchants alike are taking a keen interest in the governor's tax holiday proposal. Reporter Wandy Lawson visited an area mall today, and she joined us live from the House chamber with more on the response to what Governor Barnes calls Shop Georgia. And Wandy?
Well, I'll tell you, Hamilton, with the exception of a few complaints about the necessity of reprogramming cash registers for these Shop Georgia days, most merchants and customers were very enthusiastic about the proposal. According to economists, consumers and their willingness to open their pocketbooks has helped keep the recession from escalating. The proposed sales tax holiday could increase that willingness. Shop Georgia co-sponsor Ron Borders says the bill originated during a trip to the mall.
This was brought to me by Senator Golden, who, while shopping in 1998, was met by the manager of Belk's in Valdosta Mall, Bubba Campbell, and said, we're losing a lot of money to the state of Florida. People in Valdosta border community are going down there on the sales tax holiday. So we enacted the legislation because, as you know, taxation has to originate in the House. So we enacted this piece of legislation, and we've been shepherding for about the last 3 years to get it to where it is now.
And while Republican lawmakers support the tax holiday, not everyone agrees with its origins.
Well, it's a great idea since me and some other people were the first one to propose it. We're glad that he's on board. And it's not a new idea. It's one that other states do, and we'll be ready to vote for that. But that's a recycled or borrowed idea from somebody else. But we're glad that he's on board with it.
The proposal would place a sales tax exemption on each clothing purchase up to $100, school supplies up to $20, and computer equipment valued at up to $1,500. Many vendors say this will increase their revenues, while others worry about losing sales tax when trying to meet company quotas.
They're always asking for a bargain or a discount, and they might buy a whole bunch of stuff, and I'll say, well, I tell you what, I'll pay the sales tax for you. And they just like that. So the fact that they can come and shop and not have to pay sales tax on that particular day, that'll help. Because people just love the fact that they're getting a deal.
That tax help a whole lot of people make their quota on a certain day that they're trying to make. So with you taking away the taxes on those days, because for us selling sports stuff, baseball season's coming around, and that's like right in the middle of our baseball season, August and in March. And so taking away that, depending on how much we make, it's like taking away a quarter from our day.
And as the governor stated in his speech, the first of the tax holidays is scheduled to take place the last Friday and Saturday in March, with another one coinciding with the back-to-school season in August. Reporting live from the House chamber, I'm Wendy Lawson for Lawmakers.
And Wendy, what kind of savings are these tax holidays expected to bring consumers?
Well, the governor's office is estimating that in the first year alone, it can mean $11 million in tax savings.
All right, and Wendy Lawson, thank you very much.
Job creation was also on the governor's mind today. He said it was no time to stop cutting unemployment taxes for businesses, because he said that helps create new jobs.
That's why I am proposing to you an additional $129 million in unemployment tax relief for Georgia businesses. At the same time, we must remember why we have an unemployment tax: to help hard-working men and women who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own. And we must do more to help them as well. That's why I support President Bush's plan to extend unemployment benefits for an additional 13 weeks. And that's why I've been glad to work with Commissioner Michael Thurman of the Department of Labor to find more ways to help our unemployed during these tough economic times. I am proposing that we increase benefits in Georgia by $16 a week by 2003. I'm looking for a $6 increase this year and a $10 increase next year, which would bring the maximum weekly benefit to $300 per week. I also want to make it so that if a woman has to leave her job because she is a victim of domestic violence, she is eligible for unemployment compensation.
And joining us now to talk about Governor Barnes' plans to increase unemployment compensation is Georgia Labor Commissioner Michael Thurman. Commissioner Thurman, thank you so much for being with us. First of all, we just heard Governor Barnes propose $129 million in unemployment tax relief for Georgia businesses. Give us some specifics. How would this help create jobs?
Well, clearly this $129 million that he proposed today will come on top of the $949 million tax relief package already in place. By reducing taxes, I think we can help spur the economy, create new jobs, and get Georgians back to work. It was the right proposal at the right time, and it will truly help our economy become stronger and recover faster.
Commissioner Gerald Bryant here. The governor is aiming at a $16 a week increase by 2003. How did you arrive at a particular figure?
Well, Gerald, as you know, Georgia lagged really many states in the nation in terms of providing a reasonable unemployment insurance benefit. Since 1999, we've already increased the benefit by $20, and now this additional $16 will move Georgia into the third place here in the southeast United States. Right now, when we have literally thousands of Georgians who've been thrown out of work, who cannot find work, it's very important that this fiscal stimulus, that we give them money to support themselves and their families. 100% of unemployment insurance benefits is primarily disposable income. It's spent in local communities, buying food, buying clothing for families. It's good for the recipient, but it's also good for local economies across our state.
Even so, this sounds like an expensive proposal. What will the cost be to the state to increase benefits by $16?
Well, Hamilton, as you know, protecting the solvency of the trust fund is our number one priority. When Governor Barnes came to talk about this proposal and asked us to help with it, he made three basic criteria that we had to follow. Number one, protect solvency of the trust fund as we increase benefits and cut taxes. We followed these three criteria. We have a good plan. In 2002, the plan will cost just $3.5 million. In 2003, the benefit increase will be about $12.5 million. Altogether, it's a good investment in our workforce, and I think it will pay dividends in the short and the long run.
And, Commissioner, briefly in the time we have left, the governor's proposing that if a woman has to leave her job because she is a victim of domestic violence, she would be eligible for unemployment compensation. How are you going to formulate the guidelines as to what constitutes that kind of abuse and how long someone would have to be out of work to qualify?
Well, it will basically qualifying for the benefit itself would be similar to any other worker who loses his or her job through no fault of their own. We'll follow local statutes and regulations. Gerald, I want to say that was a courageous move today. Women now make up nearly 50% of our workforce, and it's not right for any woman or person who's the victim of domestic violence losing their job and then not being able to support themselves and their children. It's a major step in the right direction for our state. I'm proud of our governor, and I look forward to working with the members of the House and Senate into making it law across this state.
And we're out of time. Our thanks to you, Commissioner Thurman, for joining us here on Lawmakers this evening.
Thank you, Hamilton.
As in years past, over half of the budget will go toward education. Today, Governor Barnes reviewed improvements made to Georgia's classrooms and outlined plans for new school construction in the next few years. He also discussed property tax cuts and continued benefits for the unemployed. David Zelski is live from the House chamber with reaction to the governor's speech. David?
Well, Hamilton, mixed reviews as expected. Now, the Democrats were happy with the governor's plan, especially during these tough financial times, but Republicans say several of these issues, such as tax cuts, were long overdue and much awaited.
We will not raise taxes. In fact, we will continue to cut property taxes by increasing the homestead exemption as we have done for the past 3 years.
Despite the fact our economy is down, our revenues are declining, we're fulfilling that promise to the taxpayers of Georgia to cut property taxes, but we're getting another property tax cut. We're not passing along like Florida is the construction of new schools to the local school systems. We're doing it ourselves.
The high point, I guess, is the governor coming over towards what we've been saying as far as reducing taxes, sales tax holiday, increasing unemployment place. So it did have some high points that the governor's moving more towards us, but it seems like that's what the opposition party does every election year because we seem to have the best ideas.
I am proposing to you an additional $129 million in unemployment tax relief for Georgia businesses.
The only way to truly create jobs that will last for an extended period of time is to cut taxes. That's the only thing that's ever been proven to sustain job growth in any economy. And so we would encourage the governor to look honestly and sincerely at significant tax reduction instead of borrowing our way out of this problem that we've got right now.
We'll be able to weather this year and next year, and certainly praying that the recession won't last much longer than that.
The best way to create more jobs in Georgia is to continue our plan of education reform.
Roy Barnes understands that what's important in Georgia is the future of our children. And if we can reduce class sizes down from the first to the third grade, and to get it from 28 to 18, I think that is the most significant part of his entire speech.
We have an advantage in Georgia because, first of all, we admitted that we needed to improve our educational system. Now we as a state are doing that, and now we as a community at the local level are saying, hey, it's not y'all's responsibility, it's our responsibility, and that's what we're doing.
Now, as you can see, strategies vary, but most legislators believe that Georgia will safely make its way out of this recession, and Governor Barnes says Georgia was prepared. Reporting live from the House chambers, I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
David, many expected to hear about predatory lending today, but Governor Barnes didn't say a thing about it in his speech.
That's right. I did talk to the governor's press office, and they said the governor plans to unveil this legislation sometime tomorrow.
David Zelski reporting live. Thank you very much.
Governor Barnes' speech today was briefly interrupted by protesters in the gallery. They were calling for an end to the state's death penalty. The governor took the disturbance in stride.
I know we're all worried about our safety. Just another day in the General Assembly.
The 5 protesters were escorted out of the Capitol. No arrests were made.
As David Zelski reported a few moments ago, the governor talked today about tax cuts. He mentioned 11 states that are facing deficits, cutting services, canceling construction projects, laying off state workers, or raising taxes.
But not here in Georgia, not on my watch. We will not raise taxes. In fact, we will continue to cut property taxes by increasing the homestead exemption as we have done for the past 3 years. We know that owning a home is the greatest financial investment that most people make. It should be the source of pride and joy. But sometimes property taxes can make it seem like a burden. The tax cut I have proposed this year will put about $200 back into the pocket of the average homeowner, money they can use for home improvements, vacations, or to pay off credit card bills.
The governor said if the new tax cut passes, it would bring the amount of tax relief for Georgians over the past 3 years to more than $1 billion.
We have more now on the governor's plan to create jobs. He said now was the right time to use the state's high bond rating to secure money to build school classrooms. He said state finances were often like family finances.
And like a family, we know it is important, sometimes smart, to borrow money for long-term investments, especially when interest rates are low and we enjoy a great credit rating as we do. That's why thousands of Georgians have refinanced their homes in the last year and particularly in the last few months. And that's why there is no better time than now to build the classrooms that our children need in our public schools. In fact, the building program I have proposed will not only give us 5,000 new classrooms so our children can attend smaller classes, it will also create 25,000 new jobs. To those who would complain that we mortgage the future by building the classrooms for our children, I say this: no, we don't. We are investing in the future, and that investment will return dividends far beyond what our investment is. And our long-term debt is at a much lower level and a much lower rate than the mortgage most families carry on their homes.
And the governor said even with the proposed bonds, the state's debt service would remain well below limits allowed in the state constitution.
In a surprise move today, the Senate Education Committee decided to continue discussion on Senate Bill 335, designed to put some common sense back into the zero tolerance for weapons in schools. Members of the committee and educators expressed concern about legal implications in the bill's language, specifically use of the word intent.
The clause that gave us concern was no intent to harm, and it may be extremely difficult to prove that an individual or a student had no intent to harm. So that's what we're concerned about. We agree wholeheartedly with the concept that we ought to bring some common sense back into this issue and support the chair of the committee in that.
The part of the bill Senator Price refers to says schools can modify punishments depending on whether or not a student intended to harm others. Barbara Christmas of the Professional Association of Georgia Educators says altering some of the other language might be helpful.
Well, I heard some of the lawyers here on the committee saying that there might be a problem, so we certainly need to take a close look at that. And I thought the suggestion that we talk about it in terms of objects not meant to be a weapon might be an appropriate change, but I think it'll be interesting to hear the input from all those at the school level who deal with this.
The committee also discussed Senate Bill 336, which would lift the ban on cell phones in schools. Committee members and attendees praised the bill, saying times have changed and the law needs to change too.
Now it's really a safety issue, and parents want to be able to contact their children. They want their children to be able to contact them, and particularly students who stay for after-school activities. I think it's just ridiculous now for us to have such an absolute law where we can't have any modification. Now, local school board policy will be important. It must be clear in the discipline code that communication devices cannot interrupt instruction. They must be turned off during instructional time. But that will have to be addressed through school policies and procedures.
And the committee gave SB 336 a do-pass recommendation, and the bill now moves to the full Senate.
While the Senate waited for today's joint session, many senators used the time to speak for proposals they're backing. The favored topics today: predatory lending and re-regulating natural gas.
I have received at least 50 calls of people telling me in Savannah, Chatham County, that they have paid and did not get their gas turned back on. Senate Bill 87 is a bill that I introduced last session to re-regulate natural gas. Now, AGL might tell you that we can't re-regulate because it's going to cost the state too much money. Well, look at what we're doing to the people of the state of Georgia.
Several years ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, media, you were here and you can look at the records. I believe it was the senator from the 26th and myself who voted against gas deregulation. We were bamboozled that it was going to save money and help the people.
This body needs to recognize the need to deal with regulatory gas deregulation in some form or fashion. And that is going to happen this year.
We tried for 2 years to deal with predatory lending. But now as the economy suffers and people are out of jobs, there are more and more unscrupulous people taking advantage of the seniors and the poor people in this state, and it's time to do something about that in a bipartisan manner.
Senators, I would be remiss if I didn't get up here and say something on behalf of the Lieutenant Governor on predatory lending. Last year, Senator Ford introduced a bill, and this bill was amended several times, but the Lieutenant Governor stood firm, and he has stood firm that there will be something done properly to prevent predatory lending in this state.
As we reported earlier, Governor Barnes will announce his plans to deal with predatory lending during a news conference tomorrow.
Thousands of Georgians are victims of consumer fraud every year. Today, Governor Roy Barnes proclaimed February 4th through the 8th Consumer Protection Week. Members from the Office of Consumer Affairs joined the governor for today's event, which focused on telemarketing fraud, considered by many one of Georgia's most vicious con games.
We think somewhere between $400 and $500 million a year is being stolen from Georgians over the telephone. National estimates are upwards of $40 billion being taken through telemarketing fraud. It's an incredibly serious problem, and there's hardly a week that goes by that I don't hear from Georgians, parents of adults of older parents who come in with checks canceled that mom and dad unknowingly wrote for things that they never were going to get.
Participants in today's event hope to educate consumers on how to avoid telemarketing fraud and other scams that target consumers.
Some Georgia teens launch a campaign to make restaurants in Georgia smoke-free. Lawmakers Michelle Horton has that story.
These Georgia teens say they're fed up with smoking. Some of them have even lost loved ones to smoking-related cancer. And today, they launched a campaign to make all Georgia restaurants smoke-free. Youth in Charge, an organization of middle and high school students, is a youth-driven tobacco prevention program. And today, people of all ages came out to show their support for these teens.
I would like to see people educated about the dangers of tobacco and about the marketing tactics of the tobacco industry so that they can make informed decisions about tobacco use.
With these young people and what they're doing in their communities, peer-to-peer, in trying to get young people to stop smoking, or those that are thinking about starting to smoke, I just think this is a great cause that they're going to save people's lives, and that's what our society's about.
The group unveiled a 24-foot-long wall of memories to honor the 10,000 Georgians who die each year from tobacco-related illnesses. This wall of memories contains over 1,700 pictures and stories collected by Georgia youth to represent tobacco's deadly effects in this state alone. Youth in Charge hopes to lower teen tobacco use by limiting access to tobacco products, educating their peers on the dangers of smoking, and by making establishments like restaurants go smoke-free. For Lawmakers, I'm Michelle Horton.
Religious and faith-based organizations could be one step closer to receiving state funds to help the poor and needy. House Resolution 132 passed the House Human Relations and Aging Committee tonight with a vote of 6-2. Because the resolution seeks to change the state constitution, it would become a ballot issue for the citizens of Georgia to decide in a general election. We'll have more on that proposed legislation tomorrow night on Lawmakers.
And coming up tomorrow on Lawmakers, Commissioner Tim Burgess of the Department of Motor Vehicle Safety joins us live. David Zelski explores Georgia's indigent defense crisis, and Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor introduces new legislation that would establish a felony DUI child endangerment law. For those of you with access to the Internet, you can watch Lawmakers online. Visit our website at gpb.org. Lawmakers programs are streamed live and then archived on our site every night we're on the air, so stay tuned. Now, as Nature Scene takes you to a national wildlife refuge on the Gulf of Mexico, next here on GPTV.
We're out of time. Good night, everybody.